From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, it's great to be back with you. And the last time I saw you, we were in person, and that was really cool. So I hope things are going well with you.
Oh yeah, it was great being able to hang out down in Florida at InfoComm. So we were back away from InfoComm now and doing our regular schedule stuff. But yeah, it was a joy being down there.
Absolutely. I don't think that we do stuff like that for often enough. And it seems like once a year is becoming too infrequent based on what I'm hearing from a lot of people. So I don't know. I personally feel like people come for the people. You go to InfoComm for the people, and you also get the technology. So um, with that said, what we planned on doing today was talking a little bit about our just last minute takeaways, last uh, insight, and wrap up what we looked at and saw and experienced at InfoComm23. So I'll let you kind of kick it off for us. How was your show, and what were some of the highlights for you?
My show was good. It was chaotic. I mean, with it being the first year having a booth, I was tied up with that. Also, it was my first year speaking at InfoComm, so I was tied up with that. And then, of course, you got the show booths and all the meetups and connecting with people and then, just running into people on the show floor and talking. So it was definitely chaotic in a good way. Definitely making mental changes of how I'm gonna go further in the future with the shows. But yeah, it was good. My real takeaway from the show, and this is I want to say was probably it's a good one for our audience, is the booths I did attend to, that most of the products were the same. Like there was nothing wowing, cool out there. There were some, don't get me wrong. There were some cutting edge stuff and some nice new technology, but most of the part, I felt like most of the manufacturers like had their own little unique spin on a product that was already out there. But there was a lot of talk about open API, open architecture. Like that was what really got me at InfoComm this year, was hearing about that and how like, oh, you can buy company A and make it work with company B and easily now instead of being walled gardens and stuff.
Which is huge for our audience and people in our position, and just the industry as a whole. I really agree with you there, and I think that's a big change that was kind of subtle for some people because it's something that not everybody relates to. I'm not sure if people in different capacities and different roles and doing um, seeing things from different perspectives can appreciate it as much as we can in either a programmer capacity or an engineering capacity, or even for you from a technology manager capacity, knowing that if I buy something, I'm not going to be stuck and locked into only working with a product that doesn't have flexibility. I think flexibility to me was a big theme, and as well as a lot of manufacturers, to your point, they may not have shown anything groundbreaking, but I think that they gave off a little bit more of a refreshing perspective of we know that we have to take care of clients and we need to be more focused on needs and providing solutions and being accommodating and really understanding how we can stand out by providing maybe better customer service or being more in tune with um, doing the little things that are going to make us stand out from our competition, not because of the the features and stats of our product, but more so about how we deal with people. And I think that was also very refreshing.
Yeah, I agree. And the one after the show thing I found very refreshing, and I'll admit this happened from one manufacturer, was I know we all get those, "Oh, thank you for stopping by my booth," blah, blah, blah. But the one that I got one of those from one manufacturer, and it was tailored to our conversation. It was like, here, we met this day, here what we talked about, here's the links to what we talked about. Like, it wasn't like that generic, oh, thank stopping by our booth, here what we showed. It was, here's continue the conversation we had at the show, which I thought was refreshing. And going to your point of taking care of your customers.
Do you have any thoughts about why that change may have occurred, or what may be pushing things in this direction? Because it wasn't, it was, I would say it's more of a theme than isolated cases.
Yeah, I saw it definitely a theme at the show. Like the follow-up, it was isolated for me, but I think the push is, I want to say that our, at least in my realm, in the higher ed realm, I feel we're getting more included in the industry. So even though the industry is growing, it becoming smaller, like everyone knows everybody, even though it's growing, if that makes sense. So we're no longer looked at, oh, you're the user, you're gonna, you know, do what I say. Like I'm using that in air quotes, do what I say, to more of, hey, you're a partner, let's work together.
And, and to that point, the stats came out, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but somewhere in the range of a third or more were first timers, and also a third or more were end users that were in attendance, which is huge. I mean, that's a monumental shift, I believe.
I think you have more educated end users now.
Mhm.
It's no longer, okay, you say this, that's what we're going with. It's more like, it's more a partnership and more conversation, less of a steering the ship and everyone else is going for the ride.
So to that point, and one of the thoughts that I had was that, going back to the idea that a lot of products look the same, and a lot of and we have a little bit of a change in attitude. I think that there's a lot more of a competitive landscape now, and maybe some of the egos have lessened, or maybe there's a little bit more understanding that manufacturers, and as well as service providers and others, they need to earn your business on a regular basis. There is no guarantee, and that kind of speaks to the idea that you're not locked in. You can
Yep.
change. You are educated. There is a lot more choice out there, and it's not. And you've said this, that your allegiance is to your users, not to a brand. So I think that's a big shift. And to me, while not everybody might like that shift, if you're on the end that may be losing some market share, I think it makes for a healthier industry. And I think that I credit the end user involvement for helping to make that shift personally.
Uh, I agree. I can definitely see that, and it's a good move. It's definitely a good move.
Um, Kind of, for our audience, talking a little bit about the open API stuff, and the product flexibility and so forth. Um, where when we when manufacturers are talking about that, um, aside from the fact that they're saying that you can work with many products, and you're not limited, were they willing to go any further to talk about what benefits that could provide? And I, like, for me, my company really tries to take that and run with it to help programmers and others make integration easier with modules and drivers and plugins. Not to pitch that, but the open API, I think, is a step in that direction, and we need to continue that trend.
I couldn't really answer that at this time because, as I say, this show was very hectic for me.
Sure.
So a lot of my conversations were like 5, 10 minutes with folks. So I couldn't dive into the weeds as much as I would prefer. So I really can't answer. I got more of the surface level. There was a couple products where they talked about open API. I remember coming back and talking to contacts of mine about it. And I always preference like, well, we'll see if it actually works that way. Like I know they're saying it, let's see if it actually works that way. Because I didn't have the time to dive into that with them.
Sure. Uh, let's talk a little bit about being on the exhibitor side, because that's something that you could talk to that I really can't. It's not something that I did or have done in the past. What were some of the experiences that you had, and like how what did you learn from it?
I definitely learned a new respect for all exhibitors. Um, the amount of detail, the amount of organization and processing and all that stuff to have a booth on the show floor is a lot. It's definitely takes a lot, and it. But what really allowed me to kind of step back and say, "Wow," was if you look at the HEPMA booth, and what was great about the HEPMA booth was it was all volunteer based. Not one person was paid by HEPMA to be there, and we all have day jobs. Like, we work for our universities, but we still had I would say, an army of volunteers there. We could definitely, every show is a learning environment. Every show is you'll take from it and twist and go, okay, I'll do this better next time. So there's things we could definitely do better. Even though I could be misspoken here, but I heard somewhere that our booth was the top 25 in the top 25 booth scans, badge scans of everybody. And we had one badge scanner.
Wow.
So that, yeah, that was something we definitely need to work better on, making sure we have more than that or a better way of processing that. I know from the show alone was the number of registers into our community was I I kept telling people, and I was kind of being like not really paying attention too much to the numbers, but I was saying we were gaining maybe 100 members a day. And there were people saying we were doing maybe double or triple that a day. We doubled or tripled our membership by the end of the show. What we came in with to what we left with.
That's
But
pretty.
that goes to show you it wasn't just okay, we had the end user booth there, which was great. But we had manufacturers bringing higher ed end users to us. So we had manufacturers coming to us. We had vendors coming to us. We had end users who was coming to us. So we had a landing pad for our end users, and we also have the champions. Like Steve, you and your company is a champion for HEPMA, so that's something that helps. There's tons of other companies and manufacturers and integrators who are, again, just like Control Concept, who are championing for HEPMA, who go, oh, are you part of HEPMA? No, here, be a part, and here are the members to talk to, and bringing people to us. So it was really, I would say, a industry take to get us there.
That's impressive. And I would, one of the questions I was going to ask is what was the percentage of people that were familiar faces versus people who had just heard about Hetma for the first time, because just out of curiosity.
That I would say, and Again, I am just, it was a blur to me, but I would say probably 50% of new faces to
Wow.
um, remainder faces.
That's really impressive, and it also goes to show the importance of creating that type of visibility. Because I've known about it for many years, but when you're on the show floor and you can get recognized and get foot traffic and have a place to have a landing spot, I think it's makes it that much more impressive, but also gives you a place to attract people to, as you mentioned, like a landing spot, which I think is really impressive and helpful. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely having that home base, that one location that, I mean, I even wrote about this in a review article. It was, to me, the HEPMA booth was like a lighthouse.
mm,
It allowed users to find their way through the fog of all the other booths on the show floor and, guide them to, not only guide them to us, but also guide them to, hey, this is what's cool on the floor. This is who you want to talk to at this booth and all that stuff. So it allow our end users to get more from the show, I would say.
One of the reasons that we're talking about Tetmo a lot, and that we do, aside from your involvement and the fact that I have just a, a native interest in it, is that it's about building community, and it's about bringing together people that are s- sometimes isolated or in their own world, and and being able to identify the benefit of coming together and sharing information and meeting people that are like them, and that are share some of the same challenges, and just provide building community is and that's really what we are trying to do as part of Ask the Programmer, is inform the industry, address some of the programmer tasks and questions and uncertainties, but also try to bring programmers and people interested in programming together. So one of the things that you and I mentioned on our podcast a couple episodes ago when we had Mike Spadafaro and Kate Atkins is that it would be really great if we can get together programmers at an event in the future. So we put out a little bit of a challenge to do that by next InfoComm, and if nothing else, just to have a small meetup. So I'll kind of let you elaborate a little bit more because you're more involved with it personally. But I think that there's there's a lot of value that you get out of being amongst your peers and being amongst people that understand you, but also creating that critical mass that shows that what you do is important and needs to be recognized in the industry.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. I think setting that a meetup is ideal. I mean, you look at InfoComm, you have the tweet up, which is great. It's a great environment to meet a lot of the people from Twitter, but not everyone's on Twitter. Where there's so many different social media out there, especially a lot of the new policies and rules that are going on Twitter that some people are really getting away from that. So it's hard to be connected sometimes when you go to that tweet up because you only know about it if you're in the Twitterverse. But what about people who are on Slack? What about Discord? Um, I know I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this here. It was actually brought up in a keynote I gave where you look at Paul Revere. A lot of researchers wonder how he was able to tell everyone about the British coming. And what they determined was he didn't have to tell everybody. He didn't have to run for the town saying the redcoats are coming. What all he had to do was he was actually a member of 7 different guilds. He only had to tell those leaders of each guild, so 7 people, who then filter out the conversation out. And I'm the same way. I'm a member of a lot of different organizations. As we know here, HEPMA. I also have my own Slack group. I'm on Facebook groups. I'm on LinkedIn groups. I'm on like wherever there's a community that we can build. I'm on there. So it's a lot. Sometimes a lot of information overlaps, but sometimes you'll get a nugget from one that's not another. And so that's why I feel it's important being part of multiple communities, not just one.
I think I share some of those same sentiments, and I like that example too. It's the you can grow exponentially when you have different outlets to draw from, and if you especially if you're trying to convey a message, and it allows you to really magnify your voice. So as we wrap up, one thing that we're trying to put a call out to our listeners is this something that interests you? Is this something that you feel would be valuable, important, and we really are looking for your input, and we're looking for you to come and connect with us and to um, voice your opinion, or just raise your hand and let us know, because I think that there's value in bringing more voices to to getting more of people's voices heard, but bringing together people as a collective. So, um, James, I'll let you kind of wrap this up, and also let people know how to reach you and so forth. What's a good call to action here?
So a call in action I am going to put out there is after this airs, um, make sure you are, if not already, following and connected to AV Programmer Pod on Twitter. We'll put a little poll on there asking our listeners that would you like a community in a Discord server, a Slack group, and a couple other options on there. So you can definitely message that there, look for that poll to see how we can get involved a little more and stay connected as a community. If you're not on Twitter, as mentioned earlier, not everyone's on there. You can find Steve and or myself on LinkedIn, and you can message either one of us um, about that to get into this community that we're going to build. And I'll put out there is if you're not on LinkedIn, but you're still a listener, you can actually email me at King, King, J as in James, N as in Nancy, J at Comcast.net, which is my personal email. Send it to there. And you can communicate with me that way about what community you would feel value in.
Awesome. And other ways for people to get in touch with you and keep up with what you're doing?
If you're on Twitter, AB_James King, LinkedIn, James King, anything with HEPMA, Higher Ed AV, definitely I'm on there as well.
Awesome. And just to um, echo what James said, so we're the Ask the Programmer Twitter account is actually at AV Programmer Pod, but we'll also use the Ask the Programmer hashtag so that you could also find it that way. You can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media, my company, Control Concepts at controlconcepts.net. If you go on that site, if you go to the contact page, you can contact me via email, via cell, text, whatever is works best for you. And like James said, we want to really get an idea of who's out there and what we can do to serve you, and how we might be able to bring the community together to start talking more, and try to build our voices. We're always welcoming new people on the show, so please let us know if that interests you as well. And we had a couple of guests in our past episodes from InfoComm. Hopefully you found those valuable. And we were also guests on the AV Ball Guys podcast, Coffee Curveballs. I think it's something, I don't have the exact title.
Coffee, curveballs, and cables.
Okay.
Tables, coffees, and curve balls.
Sorry for butchering that, but that was a great thing. And James and I were guests there, and we'd be glad to appear on other podcasts as well. So, but you can reach our podcast on all your favorite players as well as on YouTube. And we look forward to hearing from you. And with that, this has been Ask the Programmer.